If you're looking for reef keeping knowledge, practical knowledge, as well as meta knowledge, crazy discussions about the deep, dark parts of the hobby that no one ever talks to, and you want that all laced with foul language, you're in the right place. Welcome to Reef Beef. Creatures of the reefing world, welcome to the Reef Beef podcast. My name is Rich.
And my name is Ben.
And today we are going to talk about what's going on in our reef keeping lives. Why Ben compared quarantine tanks to Dachau. We're going to do Ask Reef Beef. And we are going to talk about the beefs that we actually have. So welcome to Reef Beef. So Ben, how's it going in your world? Oh, and we've got beefs. Of course, we've got beefs. You've got a beef, right? Do you have an actual beef?
I have an extensive beef.
Oh, good God.
We can almost make a whole show about it.
We'll get, great. Given our pre-show discussion, that's exactly what we want to do. We'll see where we are in the timing. Maybe we'll have to push your beef out.
I like pushing my beef out.
Push your beef out. You know, we're at 900 subs.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
I think at 1,000 we have to wear capes.
We have to wear capes. They just snuck up on me. I just looked today. So thank you, everyone, for subbing. It's great. And it helps us know that we should keep going. Ben, what's going on besides the beef that we may or may not get to today? What's going on in your reef keeping world?
In my reef keeping world, it's just craziness because I'm a one-man show. So when the holidays come up, I love the holidays, but I hate the holidays because as a one-man show, it just wrecks my schedule.
Oh, is that because everybody wants you to come out to make it clean for their thing?
Usually not that. And I know this sounds arrogant or whatever. Maybe that's not the word, but it's the truth. Like I keep a tight ship. If you're a client of mine, I try my best to keep a tight ship. So they never really run that off course. If they're running that off course, then I'm talking to you about some other equipment.
So it just gets worse.
It's just like, yeah, if there's a new install and something bad happened, I mean, that's part of my beef. And you have to give more attention to a fledgling aquarium you're trying to get out of the nest.
And the holidays makes that harder just because of the regular holiday stuff?
Yeah, and even like, Christmas, someone goes out of town and it makes it difficult to get into their place, or like Thanksgiving where it falls in the middle of the week and you're not touching anyone's tank on that day. And, and then you didn't get Paul and Susan and then John wants something and, it just gets jumbled.
Well, I hope the end of this is going to be like so far past the holiday season.
Yeah.
That this is going to come out. But I hope
4th of July.
I hope the rest of your winter in December of 2021 is easier. And you were sick, right?
I had a sinus infection so bad I had blood coming out of my nose yesterday.
Wow.
But I got a Z-Pack and some inhalant thing.
Was it pouring out of your nose or was it just kind of like dribbling out?
Last night I was actually brushing my teeth. And, with my long hair was hanging down, I kind of had my eyes closed. And my daughter was like, why is blood coming out of your nose?
Oh.
And I looked in the sink and there was like about 5 drops of blood. And I was like, wow, awesome. That's a bad sinus infection.
I think you're like Dana Scully and aliens have been fucking around in your head. What's going on here? This is, I can point this to you. I put these up.
Oh, cool. Is that ABS plastic?
It's just vinyl.
With little Velcros.
Like Kydex.
Okay.
So without it, it looks like that. Because I replaced the lights and for the upper ones, because they're so high, they shine into my eyes. So I used some of this to make blocks from that. And then I looked over and I was like, why am I looking at all this ugly shit?
Yeah.
So I had some of this. And
wait, that doesn't track. Richard worried about aesthetics?
Well, it gets old looking at this. Looks better. Doesn't that look better? I think it looks better.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a decade in fish stores. That looks like the whole fish store thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll probably do the top 2 because why not? So that's going on. I had a couple of things I wanted to say, which was great.
Say some things.
I had some... I found some acro-eating flatworms in my display.
No way.
Yeah. And I found the eggs and I found one piece, found two pieces that might have had flatworms on them. One I didn't dip because I don't want to dip it and it's growing like crazy, but I did surround it with fresh water and nothing came off. So I spent a lot of time with trying to osmotically shock the flatworms.
Let me ask you real quick. When you
Yeah.
do that, do you shut off all the power and try to get the water still?
That's a good point. So one of the things you can do with acro-eating flatworms, you don't have to restart your whole system. That's a whole nother beef we could talk about. Yeah. Anybody who has a problem, it's like, oh, you better restart. It's like, oh God. But you can base them off or blow them off the corals, and then sometimes some fish will eat them. And it's a decent way to see if you've got them. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes they hold on real tight. But if you, and Joe Waiulo was the one who was doing this with just a garden hose in the 20,000 gallon tank he has over in Long Island. You just kind of hose off the corals. And if they're relatively healthy, it doesn't hurt them because the osmotic shock leaves fast enough. But it will shock the flatworms and make them pop off the coral.
Yeah, it's enough to piss off the worm, but not enough to piss off.
Yeah. So I turn everything off because I want the fresh water to stay right there. But more importantly, if a flatworm comes off, I want to see it. And if the flow is on, something might get blown somewhere. And then you're like, I don't know if that's a flatworm or not. So I turn off everything. And on this one coral, I didn't see anything. On the other coral, which is the last coral I had that had acro-eating flatworms, and I haven't really checked for them in about a year. I definitely saw eggs, and I got my.
Is it worth fussing about trying to figure out which is kind of dumb, but fussing about trying to figure out like, how did I get them? Which doesn't really help you with the problem.
I don't think that's worth fussing about. They come in or they don't come in. You know, where you got it from, who cares? And also, you know, I would guess that these ones, you know, there's been one or two here and there in my tank. I probably didn't go through and dip this coral every week for 2 months to make sure that I got them all. I did see a bunch of eggs, so I knew I had them there. And I
what do they look like, the eggs?
Little orange eggs. In my Reef Hobbyist article.
Link.
Yeah, I wrote that down. From 1,000,000 years ago, and not much has really changed with acro-eating flatworms. I've got pictures. We'll post a link to that. I didn't even think to take pictures, but I did burn them with my laser.
Hey, that's a pretty good one for the laser.
I got a new laser, except
blue,
a new blue one that charges through USB-C rather than pulling the batteries out. So that's nice. Otherwise, it looks like exactly the same laser I had before.
How about a link to the laser?
Laser. I thought about leaving them to see if the eggs developed or not. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, the laser, it's really not a good way to deal with the eggs because you can only hit the eggs you can see. Okay. So I don't want people or myself to get the idea that the laser is a solution for acro-eating flatworm eggs because if you only zap the eggs you can see, you know, and you don't get the eggs you don't see.
I mean, but isn't that something? I mean,
yeah, well, maybe it would help knock it down. It would stop it. But I would assume if you can see eggs in one place, you might have eggs in another place. So that's a risk. So I pulled the coral. We talked about super glue a lot, and you're now a convert to super gluing.
Absolutely.
This is a colony about half a fist size in length. And it was glued in, so it just popped right off, the whole thing. Boom.
Half a fist size is about a quarter of a Texas food bowl.
That's right. That's exactly right. And there were eggs in other places. And I thought about lasering the eggs. And then I thought, well, it was dry, because that should sure take care of them, right?
Just like freaking unadulterated band?
Not outside of the water, just burn. So that would work, but then I was like, I'm just going to cover them with super glue because I got the super glue. So forget it, you know. So I did that, and then I stuck it back in, and it took about 2 seconds because of all the glue was already there. It was already primed, so it was super easy. Maybe I'll take a quick video of that that coral.
Which one is it? Is it a easily rememberable one?
Which coral it is?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the
I
big
know
one.
I know every coral in my tank, even though it's packed. And what I'm gonna do, I was thinking about, this is a side note, but what the hell? And I want to get to aphaptasia. I was thinking about writing a blog, where am I gonna do tank updates? What do I want to do? And I'm thinking that the idea of, yeah, right, that the idea of,
Beef
right, I'm right, because I was thinking blogs are, no one cares. A forum, some people care, but then it's just there. What is it really doing?
The
And then
beefers are hungry for
well,
info.
I thought I'm going to do a video version of it. And the first one I'm planning on doing is just how I assess health in my tank. And so I'll go through with the camera and like that coral, and I can give a history for each coral and what I'm looking at and what's been going on and what I'm thinking about, and maybe that'll be interesting. So we'll see.
Dude, this will be like crack cocaine to a beefer.
So maybe. So I'll
No
probably,
maybe about it.
I'm thinking of doing that once in a while, and we'll put them up through Reef Beef, because why not? So anyway, I put the coral back in, and again, I'm not worried about acro eating flatworms so much anymore. I went through and I basted a whole bunch of other things, but I don't see it anywhere. Then I thought, well, shit, if I'm looking for acro eating flatworms, I bet you it's been too long since I've looked for red bugs. And so I looked for red bugs, and they were only on like the red dragons or the dragons, which are.
You just do that with your eyesight, or do you have like some device?
I have eyeglasses that are 6 times magnifiers, and I put those on and get right up to the front of the tank with a flashlight, and then it's super easy to see red bugs.
I'm just laughing because it's like, what is that, steampunk? You probably have like some steampunk glasses.
I do, actually. I have a whole thing with different sizes, with different magnifications.
Yeah.
But I find that these glasses that I got are super easy to use. So I just put them on and go. And you can totally see them. It's amazing, actually. It's a really neat way to look at the tank, actually.
Yeah.
And I find the eyeglasses better than a thing that you have to hold, because all you do is move your head around.
There is a thing available to hobbyists. I was cleaning, one of my clients today has it. It's from Flipper, that magnet where they flip over. They do have this giant magnifying glass thing. It's probably not as versatile as that thing that you're using, but it's something.
It's something. I have that in the other room, and it's actually, because my corals get close to the front glass.
It's bulky and big.
Yeah, so sometimes I hold it up, but the glasses are right there, so right there as well, so I usually throw those on. And I saw red bugs on the dragons, some of them which were looking light. And then I had one other coral that was looking light as well. And I thought that might have, when I think about it, that's a red bug symptom, is the corals kind of get light. So I dosed with my old ancient interceptor. And now there are far fewer red bugs for now. So we'll see how that goes.
That's that Bayer product, correct?
No, it's interceptor. It's heartworm medication.
That is so bizarre.
That Dustin Dorton figured out a long time ago, and it still works.
Good job, Double D.
And I can't believe my ancient pills.
They're super old ones?
They expired like 4 years ago. Certainly seem to still have the desired effect. So do that at your own risk. So yeah, once in a while, I got to remind myself to look for the pests.
For sure.
So
you wouldn't want it to where it's like goes to plague proportion. You're like, holy crap, I'm swimming in Asia. It's like, at what point did you not notice those?
Right.
That's a major part of reef keeping.
Well, it's true. And it's also, once your tank is going and you don't have a problem for a while, you get out of the habit of obsessing the hobbit. Get out of a hobbit, like a tauntaun.
In the Shire.
And I thought they were short on the outside.
Oh, now you say hobbit and short. That's not very nice.
Hobbits are short.
You don't have to point that out. You don't have to point that out.
That's like
how
saying,
many hobbits do you think watch this show?
I think every hobbit in existence watches this show.
The entire Shire.
Every hobbit that has ever been has
watched
this show. Yeah, you just stop looking, right? Because everything's going okay. I'm pretty happy that I went, oh shit, I should look for these.
Yeah.
Because if when it gets worse, then it's like they're everywhere. They were only on a few corals. And the last
That's
thing,
sort of the same thing for red planaria. Like you don't really, you'd rather not treat them when there's 50 billion thousand. You'd rather treat them when there's just a few, because the whole problem that comes from killing them is the crap that's inside of them.
right?
If
So
you kill them off when there's 50 billion thousand, it says it right there in the instructions. The first thing they want you to do is to siphon off all visible flatworms.
right, and then so when I've got a plague of flatworms, we talked about that. I'll siphon for a couple of weeks because before I treat, but that's flatworms. And then aphaptasia. Well, this all comes together. I'm feeling more and more that these pests that everyone's always been looking for a way to eradicate, just get them under control and deal with them once a month, once every
It's more
other
like
month.
maintenance and less like eradication.
Yeah, it's just I really think the idea that you're going to quarantine everything enough to not get these pests is just not,
It's a fool's errand.
it's not realistic. So, speaking of that, aphaptasia, I've been doing it on Mahanos
Yeah.
and Pallies.
Uh-huh.
And I've had a lot of Mahanos in the system. Like I've taken rocks out, big rocks, and poured acid on them, and that knocks them back for a while, and that's good. But that's a pain, and it also kills other things on the rock that I'd rather not kill. But the aphaptasia seems pretty burly.
I feel kind of good about that because I think I kind of showed you that one.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you take credit for that?
You can give me some credit.
I just did. It was grudging, but I gave it to you.
Yeah, I had to drag you across it.
Yeah, it seems to work way better than Kalk paste, and it seems to be than Aptasia X.
I just suppose, I guess I like it if you do it properly, it hardens and sits there.
Yeah,
So-
I treat it exactly like Kalk paste. You mix it up and then it comes out like popping a big delicious zit. And it doesn't blow away. It's got to come out like a paste.
Yeah.
And it goes right on top of them. And I did a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
And that turn off all the pumps, leave the pumps off for half an hour to an hour, and then turn them back on and not care if the stuff blows around. And
A lot of times, some of those clumps from the aphaptasia would just sit there.
most of the time they'll stay. The
Yeah.
cock will do that too, unless you blow directly on them. And I went through and I did some cleanup again, and there was very few of them. And the false, like I know I hit that one before, like I used to get with some other products, but it's back. I'm not seeing that with the aphaptasia. So check back with me in a couple months, and we'll see how all that's going.
Which
So that's
is not a sponsor of the show.
I know, right? I keep talking about it.
Information.
So yeah, so that's what's going on. That was a long update, but I've been paying attention to my tanks lately.
Good.
Oh, and I had a meeting today. This tank here, that might be rented out soon.
Wait, the top left. Well, my top left.
That one,
That's rented out.
this one may get rented out.
Same company?
Different company.
Dude, what do I
How-
need to do to get my tanks rented out?
How awesome is that?
I'm just, hey, anyone out there in social media land, you want to rent something of mine? Dude, if you want to rent my forehead, we just put CJ across
CJ
my
on your
forehead.
So
I'll
it
get prison tax.
I may be talking, out of turn, but the meeting we had was really great, and they seem really excited about stuff. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, sir.
So a longtime fabulous sponsor of our show has been saltwateraquarium.com. And we used them before that, so we were thrilled when they wanted to come on and sponsor us. And if you want to get stuff from saltwateraquarium.com, click the link down below. It lets them know you came through us. And we know that they've got 3 different fulfillment centers. We know that they're, even though we're using words like fulfillment center, they're small family business with a grandpa chained up to the radiator downstairs.
It's just grandma's broom closet.
Yeah, and he's locked up in there, ship that! Get it ready for shipping!
Oh my
Pappy.
God, Richard ordered F-Aptasia again.
Come on.
With his voice.
Richard just ordered an underwater light to try Grocheto more. So get on it, Pappy.
Yeah.
We know all that. We know that they have got almost every product that you could ever want, and we know that they've got live stuff, and we know that they've got all kinds of cleanup crews and support and and ways to give back to the community, like discounts for first responders and military folks and all that kind of stuff. But Ben, do they have anything new?
They do, and I'm here to tell you about it. They have an app. They have an app now. Like, it's more like order friendly if you just want to order on your phone, like, because they, some places have it, it's kind of tricky if you just brought up their website and you're trying to navigate through that. So they have an app. They just go on the iTunes store, or what is it called? I sound like such an elitist, but what is it called if you have a non-Apple phone?
Stupid. It's called stupid. No,
yeah, it's called, what the hell's your problem?
I don't know. Android based, right?
Well, the Android, like the app thing, go find it. It's, Android and Apple. You can find it.
You say it like this. The new saltwateraquarium.com app available where you get your apps now.
Yeah. Wherever you're already getting your apps, go there and you'll find saltwateraquarium.com apps. Sweet.
Making it easier to buy stuff from them.
Yep, making it easier for Ma and Pa to kick crap out of the broom closet.
Yeah, who wrote that app? It was Grandpa.
It was. He was promised if he wrote that app, he could get out of the closet.
And you know that his last name is actually Saltwater Aquarium.
Yes.
That's their last name, the family name.
It is.
Anyway, thanks, Saltwater Aquarium. You've been great to us. We really appreciate it. And I literally did just order some stuff yesterday. Yes, another bottle of F-Aptasia and an underwater light. So they're awesome. Thank you so much for the sponsorship. Go check them out down below.
Check them out.
Yeah.
Let's go to our snack. In the last episode, we were talking about quarantine tanks, and we compared some quarantine tanks. Oh, I got to give you credit, Ben.
No.
You got to have credit.
I didn't want to bring up controversial things.
What?
You compared quarantine to Dachau.
I did do that.
I ain't going to touch that. But I will say that quarantine is sometimes where you bring things to die, as opposed, not that I'm dissing quarantine. It's just it's a fine line. If you don't run it correctly, it can just be a killing machine.
We were talking about quarantine and how at a public aquarium we thought that the most skilled aquarist should be in charge of quarantine and of fish and corals and inverts, because we think you need the most skilled person being able to deal with all the different things that quarantine can throw at you. Not just the medication, not just what each individual animal needs specifically, which those are two huge things, but also you got to have a real understanding of how your tanks work, because all kinds of things are going to get screwed up. You may have to do, because of ammonia issues, you may have to do 4 water changes a day on those tanks.
Skilled too, but if I can, let me throw in, like, I'd also be looking for organized and motivated. Because here's a problem, like things like testing copper daily. Like, do you just like looking at fish, or that shit needs to get recorded and monitored, and you're going to put in the hard work?
Well, I'm assuming I'm assuming at a real public aquarium where there's people who come around and test, not some weird,
make fun of my experience.
not some weird little podunk kind of,
the
like
4th largest city in the United States.
Like inside the 7-Eleven public aquarium.
Hey, those Slurpees have to be tested.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I think that all that comes into the most experience, because the most experience knows that you got to be on top of that stuff.
Fair enough.
And what I see a lot, because I'm really enjoying like the rank beginner forums on Facebook right now.
Cool.
Enjoying's the wrong word, but it's like a guilty pleasure, I guess.
Yeah.
And watching all the people who are being told to quarantine, who don't have any experience or skill, just set up an abattoir for their animals. I mean, I don't really see a way around it. It's some of it is like super bad, super preventable, and super terrible. And that's just how keeping animals sometimes goes. So it's hard for me to say quarantine is the best thing to do and everyone should do it, because I see so many people trying to do it and just setting it up incorrectly and then not really understanding the disease. They're all just trying to do a recipe, and it's not, except for the tank transfer method, maybe it's not really a recipe based deal. And we talked about this on episode 41. So if you want to hear more about the tank transfer method, and we'll probably do a show where we actually break it down some more, because I think it's freaking great. But just before we came on, I was reading some guy had an angel that he had put in quarantine for 2 weeks with copper because it had bumps on it, and now he put it back in his tank, and now the bumps are back, and it's like
2 weeks only?
Right. So exactly. So all the things are wrong. And I've seen some of them that make me squidge so much that I if I look at them too much, I get on the edge of leaving the hobby, because I find it so distasteful that this is happening. It's like if you had your dog or your cat and you did, you spayed and neutered them yourself. It's just like, well, wait a minute. Have you ever had a dog before or done any surgery? No. Okay, let me walk you through how to do this.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to work.
Simpsons episode where the neurosurgeon's reading a how-to book right as Homer's passing out.
Right. So, yeah, I compare it to Dachau because some of the ones I've seen are just freaking awful. And I also have a Jewish background, so I can. And I also think it's an appropriate button-pushing thing to say, which is something I've been known to be fond of doing in the past.
Now, because I'm not saying anything about that, because my ancestry is the
you put
opposite part.
Your grandfather put my grandfather on a train, is what happened. You're, yeah, and again, we pretty much know what we're doing with this podcast when we say things like that, and we pretty much know if that rubs you the wrong way.
How did you make it this far?
Yeah, and sends you screaming. We totally understand, and we wish you all the best, and we'll see you on other platforms that aren't as nutty as us, nutty in a weird way. So
that's why we're here, because we're nuts.
So we like quarantine. In theory, we think quarantine's a fine thing. I know I purchase animals from places that have some kind of quarantine before I just dump them in my tank. And if not, I'm very careful about when I pick them, and I watch them feed, and I watch their behavior for 40 minutes at the store before I bring them home. And if I'm concerned, I put them in one of the tanks that act as a QT, but I don't really have to do anything because it's already separate from the rest of the system. And I observe them, and if there's a problem, I do something. So I think, and if I was bringing in lots of animals, new system, I would probably do tank transfer method or set up a tank or something for them. Probably tank transfer method, because I think that's the most efficient way to deal with disease, and it's also the easiest way to do a QT. It's just
now, Richard.
So
I'm a small operation. So when I get occasional wholesale fish orders in, sometimes I go to local stores that I'm friends with. They give me a discount. That way I can cherry pick.
Yeah.
But my method that I do, if I was a fish store, I would be told, if I was bringing in like hundreds of animals, I would be more like by the book. But with me, I have several tanks set aside that I can separate some of the fish out into when I do receive that. And before, and I could be incorrect on this, but what I usually do first is I get stuff in and I let it calm down. I feed it. So I'm observing for a couple days.
Yeah.
And if something needs attention, I'll move it to a different system where then I will bring in chemicals. But I don't chemical treat right away. I know that, there's people that know far more about doing that.
There is lots of philosophies about this. And
Pro and
like
stuff things.
Some people really love the idea of prophylactic treatments and prophylactically treat everything. The only real problem I ever had, the real disease, besides having some ick here and there, and never really freaked out about that. But when I got very expensive fish that were hard to get, I definitely quarantined them, because that's a dumb thing not to do. We could have the ethical discussion about why are expensive fish quarantined, Rich, and you don't care about the cheaper fish. Mostly because I got them from places that don't quarantine, and so they come to my house. I don't know anything about how they've been treated, and they've just been stressed the hell out. It's not from a supplier that quarantined. It was straight from a wholesaler, and I didn't get to observe the fish, and they're very expensive, so I want them to live. I want the other ones to live too, but the risk assessment is different.
All your damsels at your house are upset.
All my damsels, because I have damsels.
Hey, Springer Eye isn't too bad.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you should get some.
I like them.
They're pretty, but they're kind of dicks.
I don't know that I've seen them be a dick, but their claim to fame is that they eat flatworms, and I can also say that I've completely seen everyone do that either. You having fun over there, Mr. Ricciardo?
This is my new reaction to when people say this kind of fish actually is good for a biological control. None of them are good. Some of them have more of a possibility of being biological controls, and some of them not. I've had copper bands that won't touch a goddamn anemone. So,
yep.
And then I've had copper bands that eat fucking clams. Fuck you, copper band.
Yeah.
I've had copper bands. I used to like keeping feather dusters.
Yeah.
So there you go. Quarantine is good. Selection of your fish from an ethical and responsible dealer is a better way to go, because then you don't have to be as worried. They've already taken the initial hit. But if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was about to say, quarantine, if you don't know what you're doing, is a death sentence.
You're willing to say a death sentence, but you're not willing to say Dachau?
I will use the term death sentence.
Your family is German.
Yeah.
Look at you using all these euphemisms. There you go. Right there.
Button.
So that's a weird question. Then what do you do with somebody who's new, who's quarantining stuff? I would say get your animals from a place that quarantines.
I mean, part of me wants to say, like, hey, brand new hobbyist, come right in. There's going to be a lot of information. It's going to be a lot of stuff, but like, you overwhelm people.
Yeah.
Like, how do I keep a tank? Oh, also, let me teach you how to keep quarantine. It's like, not that I'm worried about people running away. People will run away because invariably, I love it when people say, oh, this hobby's not that complicated. You know what? Fucking A, it is complicated.
Pretty complicated.
It is.
There are easy ways to do it. We've talked about them. If you want to have like a 30-gallon tank and go to the store and get 15 or 20 gallons of water every week or every 2 weeks, that's going to work pretty well. I'm not worried about your system so much. Yeah. So if you're new and you want to quarantine your fish, I'm going to recommend the transfer method.
Can we link an article to the tank transfer method?
I'll see if I can find one I like.
Okay.
And we'll do a show about it. But briefly, you can take a 5-gallon bucket, 2 5-gallon buckets, 2 heaters, and 2 rigid air lines, 1 pump. You fill the thing with water and you put your heater in it, get it right, have it bubbling, put your fish in it. The next day, you feed it. And then that evening, you do 100%. You set up the other system with its heater, and then you fish the fish out, and you put it in the other bucket, and then you rinse out the other stuff, and you unplug it, and you leave it somewhere to dry.
Or you could crank the heater way the hell up.
Dry.
No.
We're talking new people.
Okay.
Dry. Leave it dry. Because why do you don't want to reuse that water. Reusing the water is a way up skilled thing, because you got to look for all kinds of stuff.
It's got ickies in it.
Yeah. So dump that water, let it dry out, and then do that, reverse it and do that 2 days later. And you do that for 5 or 6 transfers, and you should be ahead of everything.
So, I mean, most of these parasites are on the fish and then they jump off. So it's like, I guess the thought is you're leaving a lot of that behind. You do it over and over and over again.
Right. So you were trying to catch the parasite when during its stage when it's off the fish, because it's got to develop somewhere else generally. There's some parasites that don't do that, that just stay on the fish. We're not talking about those. And you get ahead of it. It's exactly like if you're in a room with a bunch of people with a cold, but you change the air very quickly all the time with fresh air that doesn't have people breathing into it with colds, it's less likely you're going to get a cold. That just gets thrown away. The cold virus gets tossed out through your water change before it's got a chance to settle onto you. That's all it is.
I would say too, for what it's worth, like copper is not a lot of certain fish do not do well with copper, and copper is also maybe this isn't really correct, but I've always like looked at copper, and copper I think too is the way to go when you have to use it. But copper is almost like if you have cancer and you get chemo, like it's kind of killing you, but it's also kind of killing the parasite.
Yeah,
it's a rough way to go.
And then you get issues that affects fish's appetite. Man, quarantine is not as easy as falling off a log. Yeah. Transfer method's pretty good. So if you're new and you want to do that, maybe I'll pull out my transfer method gear, and maybe we'll go over it in an upcoming episode. So anyway, we're not saying that it's bad that people quarantine. We're saying bad quarantine is bad. Bad quarantine is bad.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with Dachau.
Everything to do with Dachau. I'd rather you not do it. So if you're a new hobbyist, just get some fish from a reputable place and just jerk around with them. You know, get some captive bred animals that are easy from a reputable source that has kept them sequestered for a little while. So, and then just deal with that and just have those fish for a few months. If you haven't been doing this for 6 months already, at least.
There is a possibility you check your market, ask around to stores that from time to time, certain markets have people that you could pay to do that for you.
Sure. Or join your local reef club and go, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want this fish, and I don't have any way to quarantine. Is anybody interested?
Yeah.
And somebody might go, sure, I'll do that for you. It'll cost you $3,000 or whatever. Or maybe they'll do it for free.
For your $5 fish.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So anyway, we've talked about this to death. We're moving on.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Hey, beefers. Do you know what is like the best way to support us?
No, Ben. No, Ben. Tell us, what is the best way to support you?
Richard was just straight up.
My name's Rodney.
Rodney Ross. No, Reef.
Don't make fun of you. I'm trying to support your show.
Membership.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. You need to say that again.
Reef Beef Podcast /membership. Become a member. Then, join up even the bottom level, and you get to ask us questions and we shall answer them. Also, too, if you like a video or it's something pertinent to a conversation that you're having online, like share the video to your friends and family and enemies. We do appreciate all the support. We're so close to 1,000 supporters, and at which time we will need to wear Reef Beef capes. And so we're only like 100 away, and you can get us there only if you share us with your friends and family. But that's it. Thank you for your support, and please continue to support.
We totally appreciate it. It makes us feel good. If you give us monetary support, it's fantastic because it helps us get equipment that we need and storage that we need and all kinds of stuff and future projects that we have planned. And, if you can't support us financially like that, we totally get it. And if you dig us and you share us around, we really like that. So thanks a lot for all your support.
Thank you.
From Ben, Snowman, Rich, and Rodney. Thank you.
Yeah.
We got Reef Beef. Ask Reef Beef. By the way, thank you all for getting us to 900 and whatever what is that called?
Subscribers.
And for all the information. Thank you guys so much. It's really nice. We like that. Here's Scott. Scott says, how do colonies of Acropora benefit from feeding of either powdered foods or amino acids? If you decided to feed, what would be your recommended feeding time of day, frequency, quantity, and style? I.e. slow flow, no flow for 10 minutes, etc. for both corals and amino acid supplements. And I'm trying not to do that.
My part of this will be more anecdotal than Mr. Ross's answer, might be a little more scientific. So as it pertains to maintenance clients, man, I don't spend a lot of time with feeding corals. I truly do. Whenever we had Polyp Lab as a sponsor, the first thing I do is put a fat pinch in the sump right by the pump. It blows it all in. Now I'm getting all my stuff ready. You know, it takes me 10, 15 minutes to get all the stuff ready. They'll get the water right there, all this and that. And then I, you know, wet skim or do whatever I'm doing, which sort of like heavy in, heavy out. That's how I approach it. You know, as far as you're talking about turning off the flow, turning off this, turning off that. That's my approach as a maintenance technician. Now, like I told you, if I run out of reefroids or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. It's not like that. It's just an occasional feeding that I give corals.
Well, that's going to be my question before I say what I think about it is, what are you doing and why, and what's your goal? Right? I started feeding stuff for two reasons. One, because I wanted to spawn it. So I want to feed it up. And two, because I have a crap ton of NPS animals in my tank.
Yeah, you have to.
So, you know, if I had acros only, if it was, you know, a simpler group of animals, that's funny that I can consider acros a simpler group of animals than NPS. And I, you know, and I was just keeping them as a hobby because they're pretty, and I, you know, was just kind of doing it. I wouldn't feed all that much at all. But if you're going to feed, I mean, I do like feeding. I think it's good, but you know, it depends on what else you're feeding. But we're talking about the powdered foods. Yes, I use them. I have a doser that I use that's got air into it, and it's got a trickle of water in it, and I put my powdered foods in there, and it bubbles around in there and slowly doses the tank over 2 or 3 hours.
Is that old CPR, like gutted?
That's, it used to be. It's now a phosphane reactor, one of Julian's phosphane reactors. I'm still trying to find the perfect off-the-shelf version of this. Avast might have something, actually, that I saw this morning. But anyway, so this is an auto feeder. There's many ways to do it. There's articles about it in Drummond Croker. In Drummond Croker, Matt and I, we built a big version of this for the big tank at the Steinhardt Aquarium. It's essentially the same thing. You need a reservoir that you put the food in. It's got to be kept cool somehow if you're going to keep it in there for more than a couple hours. And then it's got to dose regularly. And then you got to deal with cleaning it is the real issue. So I like it to be easy. So I want it to be constantly flushed with clean water, so it's not just stagnant and gets gross. So I feed it. I like long feeds. I often will squirt something into the tank to let everything know food's there, and then come back 20 minutes later and start feeding again. I do both broadcast feed, which is through the device I was just talking about, but I'll also take I have a bunch of turkey bases of different sizes that I've bent so I can suck food up and I can squirt it directly at the corals I want to feed. If I'm feeling like feeding my LPS corals directly, I'll turn the flow off, but I do that very rarely. So I don't have many of those in the tank because I don't do that kind of feeding. I do feeding where things catch easily. So, you know, I think it's a fine thing to do. I mix up the foods I use. There's Reef Bright makes one, and Polyp Lab makes one, and Benepets makes one, and Larry's makes one. There's a whole bunch of different food. I like to mix it up because I think you get different reactions from the coral. I think they get used to the same thing all the time, so I like that. I try to do it every other day when I'm feeding, but I feed a lot, maybe every third day. And, you know, sometimes slow flow. It just depends on the coral. So it's really, what have you got? If you're doing a regular tank, a little bit of a powdered food or freeze-dried food. And I like to hydrate it first and pour it in slowly over time so it doesn't just go through and then flush out to your sump. A great thing to do it if your display does not drop too far when you turn off your return pump is just turn off your return. If you turn off your return and then no corals or anything or equipment is exposed above the water line, man, if my tank was like that, I'd be so happy, because then I would just turn off the return for 2 hours and let everything sit there and soak in the food.
And have all your circulation pumps batting it around.
Exactly. Yeah. Amino acids. I run Julian's amino acids. What's it called? AcroPower. I don't know why I run that, but I do. So
I did for a little while on clients' tanks, but and I'm not, I'm not here to be an opponent to amino acids, but it's just hard to quantify what's going on.
It's impossible to quantify what's going on.
I think they look brighter. I think they look darker. Come on, dude. I mean, I'm not saying it's a lie. I'm just saying it's just hard to quantify.
Yeah. So, and that I just run with a peristaltic pump that doses it automatically to whatever it says on the directions. Why am I doing that? Because it's not that expensive. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. And when my memory goes back to when the tanks seemed the best, it's when I've been dosing that. So because if it's impossible to quantify, because it's not too expensive, because it's incredibly easy, I dose that. I also dose Bob Stark's ESV's TE
spray dried
TE Plus, Trace Elements Plus.
Okay.
Which doesn't have aminos in it, but it's got trace elements and it's got a little bit of carbon for carbon dosing, which I'm just using as bacterial food to help feed the corals. So basically, this is the kind of question I think where people want a recipe, and I'm going to answer by going, there's no recipe. What animals do you have and what's your goal? And let's figure out a way for you to reach that goal with food. So Scott, if you want to write back again and tell us, well, he says, how do colonies of Acropora deal? I think Acropora benefits from being fed. So I would feed Acropora a couple, 3 times a week. I wouldn't feed as heavily as I'm feeding now with NPS. I would leave the flow on. And I would look at the corals just after lights go out, about an hour after lights go out, and see if the polyps are out. And if the polyps are out then, but not when the lights are on, I would feed then. And then I would slowly try to train the corals to have their polyps out when the lights are on. But your fish may be making that not happen. So that's the actual answer. God, it took us 10 minutes to get to the actual answer.
Move on.
Moving on. Thank you, Scott. Denise writes, any ideas why my tank, 3-month-old and 14-gallon with moderate coral load and 2 small clowns, is chewing through Kalk and calcium? I primarily have Zoas, a few LPS, 2 SPS frags, nothing fancy, and it's all new. 20% weekly water changes, ALK with Hannah Checker between 8 and 8.5, but it consistently drops to 6 to 6.5 before the next water change 6 to 7 days later. Using Tropic Marin, symbiotic salt. Maybe that's normal and I just need to start dosing, which is fine, but it seems odd to me. What are your thoughts?
Teacher.
If I read it, you're next, baby.
Okay.
You answer it first.
I read this question before the show, and it's funny because it's so pertinent to me because I'm always answering people's questions like in real life or whatever. And for whatever reason, what are you laughing at?
Nobody else is answering people's questions in real life.
Not at all.
Just you.
No, I'm just saying.
How many years have you been doing that?
863.
God, I love giving you shit for this.
I know.
Just because it so doesn't matter and it's so great.
At all. Because you know what? Because I could have been I love when people, I've been doing this for 20 years. Oh, cool. You've been doing the wrong shit for 20 years? Sit down and shut the fuck up.
Look in the mirror, Johnson.
That's why I don't keep mirrors in my house. No, I've had a slew of people with tiny tanks saying, why are my parameters not this? What'd it do? And not like I'm making fun of anyone, but I'm just saying.
What'd it do?
What'd it do? If you got a tiny tank, shit be wild. Period.
Oh, so just deal with it.
it's just a way to explain, because I had a guy ask me, why is my pH crazy? Another guy has alkalinity, and this one person, why are these parameters
So,
doing? How many gallon aquarium you have? 7 gallon, 10 gallon, 5 gallon.
Answer Denise's question. What's in a 2-sentence answer?
You have a tiny body of water. And I would say, so I think she said she had a 12-gallon aquarium. So, having an SPS in there, which is something that would give a pretty heavy draw to, carbonates and calcium, and you've got it in this tiny body of water. Sounds crazy. Yeah, it sounds crazy that it could suck it up that much, but I think it's entirely possible.
Sure.
You just have a tiny body of water, and if something's utilizing something out of that tiny body of water, you're going to see it go quickly.
And it's not that quick. I think that's the other thing. We see alk. I can see alk drop in a day in my system.
Yeah.
So 6 to 7 days, you could easily be.
Oh, easily.
Your corals could easily be using it. It could be something else causing it too. What I would recommend, because the 6.5 is a little low, that would make me a little nervous. I would test more than once a week and see what's going on. I would test once a day at the same time of day for several weeks and see what kind of trends you can come up with.
And what was her first name?
Denise.
And Denise, let me also, this is not a sponsor, but let me, just because this is a current thing I'm in love with, but let me say too, if you have a tiny system and it's simple and you don't have like crazy Neptune stuff and all that, and you got to test by hand, I'd like to recommend Tropic Marin Alkalinity Test Kit. It's a single liquid. Richard's going to say API, right?
What did you just say?
You're going to say API.
For
so
what?
The Tropic Marin is a single liquid. You take a 5 ml sample.
It's the same. It's probably the same fluid. So I would do whichever's cheaper for alcohol.
It's just so fast and dirty. I believe Salifert, our friend Stacy, said that Salifert has one too. Salifert Tropic Marin API.
Yeah, you just want you don't give a shit if your alkalinity is 8.5. You give a shit if your alkalinity is between 8 and 9.
Yeah,
that's what you give a shit about. Yeah. And these titration tests, which do it to the single digit pre-decimal, is really all you really care about, because it's so volatile, it's moving anyway. So who cares? And there's several of them that have the single liquid titration, which is what I think you want to use, because why are you complicating this to try? Every level of complication in testing means it's more likely that your test is less accurate. So
less fun.
Make it simple. And I'll do 2 or 3 tests, because it's like 5 mil. I have a 5 mil syringe. Oh, okay. Try it again. Did I get it right? It literally takes 15 seconds for each test. Especially.
And are you getting consistent results? Because then I would stop and like, yo, why did it just say 6 and then it said 8?
Well, if it's because the trident, I have an idea of what that says my alk is. So if the titration test that I run, the hand test, comes about the same, I don't care. If it's off, I'll do it a couple times in case something's weird. When I test phosphate, if I don't rinse everything really well, the first phosphate test will come back like 9. I mean, like terrible. And then I just flush all that and do it again. It comes back at 0.2. So anyway, it's so easy. You can corroborate very quickly and then do it over a week. Oh, last word about this.
Oh, no, I just said, I believe that I saw that she said that, like, well, I'm not dosing either. So, I mean, yeah, if you're just relying on water changes and it's sucking it out, might be time to dose. And again, not sponsoring, but I'm saying, look at Tropic Marin's All for Reef. It has everything for your alkalinity, your calcium, magnesium, and trace elements all in one liquid. And so for a tiny little system, I kind of feel like that would be the easiest thing. Just keep track of the alkalinity, and all the other components are usually utilized in line with the alkalinity.
Yeah. So check it every day for a week and get back to us and let us know how it went.
Yeah.
Because that's the interesting piece of the information. Denise is also keeping a tank journal with the compilation of stuff she learns from various sources, which I think is fantastic. And she's keeping a list of what we talk about in the Reef Beef episodes. Yeah. And I think that's freaking awesome. And I think Denise said that somehow I cut this, so I'm not seeing what I saw before. We are totally interested in your journal of Reef Beef stuff, and if you want to send it to us, we'd be happy to put it up somewhere on the Reef Beef site, because that sounds like a cool thing. Yes. So there, we'll get you, you write in again. We'll get you in touch with Snowman, and we'll make that happen. Thank you for caring so much, because the write-ups of each show are pretty cool. I mean, it's like, oh, that's what the show's actually about, instead of our catchy titles, which have nothing to do with anything because they're fun. Beef. My beef is, while I'm looking at all these newbie forums, which that's not negative, it's just new people. God, almost every response to any question is buy this and put it in your tank.
Magic bottle, magic
biological control, magic algicide, everything. There's, and a lot of the ones, I think I said it a little bit earlier, a lot of the things I'm seeing, it's like, I saw one the other day, I've got Aptasia, and it's like, well, you better break down that tank and start again. What are you talking about?
You're gonna have a bad time.
And then, people are like, there's so many Aptasia. It's like, freaking Aptasia or Kalk paste or any of those will wipe out half of them easily in your first application, if not more. These things are not death sentences.
Biota has Aptasia eating filefish, captive bred.
Yeah, I've never seen any of those really go after Aptasia.
I put them in clients' tanks, and it's funny, those tanks don't have Aptasia. So in my head, I'm like, well,
and a lot of these biological controls.
Richard hates biological controls.
No, I love biological controls. I just want people to have a practical idea of what they're going to be like. You often will not see any impact of having a biological control for months. I think people have this idea, if I get a copper band, it's going to plow through, or if I get, a sea hare, it's going to plow.
But it's weird. It does happen sometimes, but
right.
Not enough to where it's like, damn, can I rent that sea hare from you? And then you put it in your tank, and he's like, I just retired from eating algae.
Yeah, I'm not,
like,
your
dude,
algae tastes weird.
Remember the old Warner Brothers things where they find the frog, and then he does the, hello, my baby, hello, my baby. And he takes it to the Hollywood people, and then he just goes, ribbit. He won't do it. Do the thing. Do the thing.
That's what biological controls are like,
yes,
a fucking frog.
like a Warner Brothers cartoon.
So routine maintenance sounds horrible, but what I mean by routine maintenance is, okay, so what do? I look at my tanks every day real quick to make sure nothing's dying. Is there anything terrible I need to take care of? No. And then I go about my business. I get into the tanks and do stuff maybe every 2 weeks. Otherwise I'm just letting it ride. And I'm making a note, like, next time I'm in this tank, what should I do? Right? And I got into that tank yesterday, and there was an Aptasia and a Mahano and a couple little things that have been on my list for like 3 months to take care of in that tank. There's just no reason to do it right now.
Physical and mental list.
Yeah. And I had another reason I needed to get in that tank. It was like, oh, I should do all that stuff now too. So it's not like none of this stuff sneaks up on you. It's not like you wake up one morning and go, algae, Aptasia.
If you're not paying attention, yeah, but then
so
then you're not paying attention.
See it when it's early. And so I had to go through and really wallop this with Aptasia to deal with the Mahanos. I won't really pay that much attention for weeks now. There's a stray here, a stray there. It was the same, I did it 2 months ago, I think was the first I did in the main tank. And I was in there again yesterday because there was another reason to get in the tank. And I, it was when I was doing the what's it? The flatworm stuff.
AEF stuff and all that. Yeah,
it was the acro-eating flatworm stuff, and I was like, I remember there's a Mahano over there that I saw, and there's one over there, and there's a There's a vermidid over here. And so I went
That's
through.
funny how at our own personal tanks so that we memorize the location of shit.
Well, you look
That's
at it
what it
enough, you just go, oh yeah, wait, where was that vermidid that I wanted to take care of?
Yeah.
Oh, it's over here, right? And there's only one or two now, so when I see it, it's like it's not hard to remember where they go. You know, if I had other reasons to be in the tank, I'd take care of those things more often. But now I'm trying to not be in the tank so often. So anyway, the point is,
Yeah, don't digress.
stop looking for freaking quick fixes to things that are hard and take a long time and can't really and are often not really fixable. I think we're
goes
looking
back
for fixes, and there aren't fixes. There's just mitigations.
This goes back to your other bitch though about kind of like reinventing the wheel, where it's not a, which is kind of understandable. There's not like one monolithic source of information where people are like, look to the monolith.
Yeah, reef beef.
Info.
Reef beef. We are the monolith.
The beef monolith. So your bitch about, you know, newbies not knowing what direction to take stuff. So like in the beginning, you know, I could say of a more advanced hobbyist, like your tank got shitty because you got lazy. But to a newbie hobby, it's like, well, I wasn't being lazy. I just didn't even know what to do.
Exactly.
And just that's what I don't like is like, then, you know, you ask sources you think are valid. But again, I'm going to go back to my piece of advice I always give people that asking me. I say, be careful getting advice to someone who has a vested interest in selling you something, because their advice is going to be attached to the thing that they're trying to sell you.
While I agree with you 100%, what I'm saying is the de facto is buy a thing to take care of the problem. You got dinos? Buy a UV sterilizer over and over and over again. And then they show a picture and it's like a fucking patch this big in a 30-gallon tank. It's like,
oh, okay.
That's what you're worried about? Just fucking get a net and just pull that out.
Hey, I can attest to this from a maintenance standpoint. It's a client that I did today. It's again,
patience. You did a client?
I did a client. No, but patience and good communication with the client, because you know, this is a type of client that knows kind of what's going on. Some of my clients are it's just a living piece of art. But this client, so we had some cyano trying to get wiggity whack in the tank. Yeah. And so, you know, I ordered some red slime remover, but it's kind of funny, almost because of the show. I was like, hold on, like, you know, let me not go throwing, you know, red slime remover in there. So, you know, I gravel vacked, and man, I sure pulled out a lot of detritus because I hadn't gravel vacked in a while.
Yeah.
And then he reported to me, he's like, man, the cyano really kind of took a kick in the groin after you gravel vac, but it was still there. And then the next time it was only really on the rock and not on the substrate. So I went through and siphoned off. Now I went back today and cleaned it today. It was about half the amount of cyano. And again, I just siphoned it right. Like, just try to siphon it away, because whatever it's fueling on, it's likely that it would eventually run out and just kind of burn itself out.
Only if you export it. It's just like carbon dosing. You could pour all the vinegar you want into your tank, but if you don't also have a skimmer to remove it, you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So removing the cyano from the tank is actually pulling the shit the cyano is eating and getting rid of it.
Yeah.
If you just leave it there, it's not exporting whatever that problem is. And it's you know, people talk about using algae filters. And what do you do with the algae filter? You throw the algae away.
It's not doing anything until you throw some of it in the trash.
Exactly. So if you're just leaving the cyano in place, there are ways that you can kill it. You know, dark can sometimes work, and just things shift around. Sure, there are other ways to do it. But if you just leave it, it ain't going nowhere.
Well, the other thing, if you would take your hand in there and waft at it, and I'd be like, no, siphon it out.
Siphon it out is better. It's definitely better. Yeah. So, does that work all the time? No. And is Denise's tank? We're going to pick on Denise. She doesn't even have cyano. Is Denise's tank the same as what you're doing for your business? Probably not.
Exactly.
Probably Denise can go, hey, you know what? I can turn my lights out for 3 or 4 days, or I can siphon this every day. It'll take me 3 minutes to siphon this little patch. You know, that's different than I'm paying you to make this look good. So I can see why you might want to resort to cyano treatment.
Man,
I
sometimes
can
you
understand
get
that.
Fired. You can either fix it or get fired. That
Right.
happens.
Well, if biological controls are hit and miss, throwing chemicals in your, you are putting bacteria in your tank, and there are horror stories of using red slime removers. There are horror stories with almost every product out there that you can throw into your tank. The question is, do you feel that you're gonna miss that horror story and the risk is worth it?
Do you feel lucky, punk? Well,
And I think going on a Facebook introduction to reefing forum and getting advice from other new reefers is probably not the best idea.
the deaf leading the blind.
My God, I saw one that said, somebody said they got exactly opposite advice in the same thread. It was like, oh, that's what it was. It was like, well, you better raise your phosphate, and the next one was, you better lower your phosphate. And I was like, how the hell are you gonna decide what to listen to? It just killed me. Exact opposite advice.
Yeah.
So if I were a newbie, I'd get off those damn forums and get to a local group, or find a good forum with people who seem to have some kind of idea of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Ask for a picture of people's tanks. And if they have a tank that you like the look of, do what they say. If they don't have a tank you like the look of, don't do what they say. Engage them in conversation, because that's always interesting. But man, if somebody's giving you algae advice and their tank is full of algae,
I'll teach you how to grow it, but I don't know how to get rid of it.
there you go. I'll teach you how to grow it, but I don't know how to get rid of it.
So,
All right, that's it. Special thanks to Snowman for doing all of the editing. It's been amazing to watch Snowman do that work. And special thanks to all the beefers who are supporting us, all the members, everyone who's commenting in the various places to comment, all the subscribers. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
and gals and non-binaries.
That too. Later, peeps.
Late.
Do, 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 do.
Prost. Skal.
Skull. Reef beef is not safe for work. Boom, ba-da-da-dum, boom, ba-dum, boom.
Beef monolith. That's a potential. We are the monolith. That's a potential. Look, you named an episode. Richard, I'm so proud of you.
Do you have a fucking point?
I never have a fucking point.
What were we even just talking about? You were going
No,
to
I'm
say
trying
something.
to get back to you. You know what? Look at this, beefers. I've been told I need to time. I'm so like ADD. Like, I'll just talk. And then Richard's like, Ben, the show's 4 hours long. Yeah, I need a timer.
Check them out. Check them out. Check them out.
Check them out.
Check them out.
Check them out.
Check them out.
Check it out.
Check it out.
Oh, you know this. Snowman's going to use this for segue.
A blooper. I just watched the bloopers now.
I don't watch the show. The show's stupid. I just like the last 2 minutes of the bloopers. The show's bullshit. I just like
That was
the
bullshit.